Namaskar.
Namaste.
Welcome to this special edition of our policy dialogue series titled AI plus Public Private Partnership Unlocking Rural Infrastructure for Viksit Bharat 2047. As India moves towards 100 years of independence, the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 is not just about economic growth, it's about inclusive, balanced, and sustainable development. Yet, one important question remains: why does critical infrastructure still lag in Tier 3 cities, municipalities, and rural India, despite strong policies and global commitments like Sustainable Development Goals? Is the challenge financial? Is it institutional? Is it about execution and governance? And most importantly, can artificial intelligence become the game changer that finally enables public private partnership to transform rural India at scale? To help us unpack these important questions, we are truly honored to have with us an eminent expert in public private partnership with over 2 decades of global advisory experience, a respected thought leader at the intersection of infrastructure finance, governance, and reform. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Dr. Naresh Bana. Dr. Bana, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to an insightful and forward thinking conversation.
Thank you, Deepika ji.
To set the context for our listeners, how would you assess the magnitude of the infrastructure deficit in rural and Tier 3 India today? Are we looking at isolated gaps in the service delivery, or is it a structural challenge that affects economic productivity, social mobility, and long term regional competitiveness?
Deepika ji, it's a great opportunity that you have planned this episode right in the wake of AI summit which just completed in Delhi. And coming to our topic today, I would rather ask you that have you not experienced the infrastructure when you move out of the major cities towards tier 2, tier 3 cities, or to the villages and see the difference for ourselves? While there has been tremendous growth and we are almost at par with any best cities in the world in case of our metropolitan cities, the same is not true for our hinterland. According to National Infrastructure Pipeline and various Niti Aayog assessments, you would be surprised that India requires trillions of rupees in infrastructure investment to sustain high growth. Yet, much of this investment is going to be concentrated in tier 1 and tier 2 cities only. And unless we take remedial measures in right earnest, the smaller places and the villages may remain deficient with the infrastructure. You see, at the global level, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, especially the SDG 9, which talks of industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, along with Goal 17, which talks of partnership for development. These emphasize overall inclusive development of infrastructure for an inclusive growth of a nation. But tier 3 towns and the gram panchayats are struggling with water supply and sewage gaps, solid waste management. You see most of the pollution in terms of polythene and other nowadays because consumption is increasing while management of that consumption is totally deficient. Rural roads maintenance and availability, logistics connectivity, digital infrastructure, healthcare facilities, And you will be surprised. The issue is not lack of capital, not the capital alone. India has enough capital and there is sufficient allocation of funds. In addition, we have sovereign funds, we have multilateral funding, we have private capital pools and domestic banking liquidity. In my experience and whatever research I have been undertaking, in fact, my thesis for my PhD was also about the development of rural and tier 3 infrastructure development. The problem is project preparation capacity and risk structuring. That's where major solution is needed. And I think AI could be helpful in that.
So, moving ahead, why hasn't PPP penetrated rural India? India has successfully leveraged PPP in sectors such as highways, airports, and urban infrastructure. Yet, rural infrastructure has not witnessed similar momentum. From your experience, what structural or institutional constraints have prevented PPP models from gaining tractions beyond major urban corridors?
Excellent question. As I mentioned already, that the problem is more to do with the public authorities' lack of or limitations of capacity at state and district levels. While we have National Highway Authority of India to develop the highways or Airport Authority under Airport Authority of India, these are organizations which are controlled by the central government. And like ports also, we have port sector development. And there has been PPP initiatives at the state level also, which have been successful, but they have not been able to proliferate where it matters most. That is the smaller cities or the villages. And one of the reason is that the local bodies, they lack technical manpower, not only for their own governance of existing infrastructure, but to conduct feasibility studies for the new development, structure risk allocation, or prepare bankable detailed project reports. And unless they have that, and also if they do not have access to a draft concession agreement, it becomes difficult to prepare a biddable project. You may like to note that a rural water project of 40 crores also requires similar paperwork or documentation as a 4,000 crore worth highway may need. So the transaction costs become disproportionate. And then the cost of setting up special purpose companies and all other related paperwork and the ecosystem, they are highly in favor or uh, aligned to the bigger projects. So we need to look into each one of them, map out the costing, and see how best those can be identified and mitigated using various modern techniques. And as far as private sector is concerned, the bigger we have seen right from the uh, not so successful Pura initiative of our governments. Pura is provisioning of urban amenities in rural areas, the vision of our late former president APJ Abdul Kalam. And coming back to the problems of private sector, because small contractors who will address these smaller infrastructure requirements would be having problem in submitting many of the uh, bid bonds to start with. So they also must have access to provisions like surety bonds, and they should be able to raise non-recourse project finance for such projects like the bigger projects too, and obtain project life cycle insurance to invite investment, and also should be able to manage arbitration and life cycle issues, uh, so that they don't have to plan for so much of bigger contingencies that the project cost itself goes up. And as of now, you will see the PPP in our country is urban centric. It is in favor of urban areas and bigger projects.
So, talking about managerial deficit, could you elaborate on what you mean by managerial deficit? Is the issue related to project preparations, contract structuring, monitoring capacity, or institutional capability at the local level?
Yes, India has capital today. Our stock markets are booming. And what we lack is a distributed managerial ecosystem and policy ecosystem. Consider there are municipal engineers. If you have seen any one of them at work or spoken to them, they are overloaded. Not only overloaded in running the existing infrastructure, but they barely have time to monitor correctly the ongoing works. There are hardly any districts which at district level have PPP cell for planning, monitoring, or executing PPP projects. State level, yes, they may be, but again, there is a big bureaucratic stranglehold. And then you have frequent transfer of officers, which leaves very little in terms of continuity and the capacity as far as PPP is concerned. There is also a serious lack of standardized documents, like I said, draft concession agreement or formats or SOPs or financing documents, anything. Though we have institutions like Niti Aayog or Department of Economic Affairs at the central level, some states have also done uh, good or been successful in deploying PPP, but more or less PPPs at the state level are not as visible or as successful as they appear to be at the central level. And one of the reason remains the standardization, the capacity, the speed at which these things should happen, the capacity of the existing office bearers and those who come in their place. So uh, I have seen myself, there have been cases like in one of the food park in Haryana, where I reviewed the concession agreement. The consultant who had prepared possibly had taken too much help from the uh, existing documents or the foreign documents, and there were many things which were just copy and paste. So, those things cannot stand the rigors of the legal structure which we require for a successful PPP, which is good for public, good for the private. And the result today is projects don't reach biddable stage because they are not properly prepared. And without biddable projects, the private capital cannot really be exploited.
Very true, sir. Now, sir, let us introduce artificial intelligence into this discussion. At a practical level, across the PPP life cycle, where do you see AI creating the most immediate and informative impact? Is it in feasibility assessment, risk allocation, financial modeling, or governance oversight?
Yes, Deepika ji, AI can intervene across the entire PPP life cycle, right from ideation to concept crystallization to planning to uh, financials or implementation or operations to subsequent uh, management and handover stage, which is the broadly the PPP life cycle. So at project identification, today it is possible that AI can help with the satellite data and other drone data to assess infrastructure gaps, exactly what is needed on which priority in which geography, and that would help in allocating of funds so uh, importantly which are required there. And then AI can also analyze the census data, the socio-economic data, and other data sets to prioritize where the priority of our infrastructure will have major impact. That is also going to help the political decision makers to assess where do they need which infrastructure for their own political benefits. In addition to, certainly, they are public representatives, so they are also thinking about the public, as we understand. And then in case of preparation of feasibility, once we have identified that yes, this is what we need to do at where, then the feasibility study need to be done. And for that, AI can use the data sets for generating detailed project report templates, or help in quick preparation of DPRs, and auto calculate traffic projections, and uh, there could be modeling for water demand and water supply and future water requirements or wastewater availability and how to utilize that. Then estimate uh, life cycle cost of various projects, and more importantly, based on the previous disputes or the risks which have arisen in past, the AI systems can be trained on historical data, so that they can identify the disputes and the likely risk because of which that dispute came in, and suggest optimal risk allocation metrics. And this is, I'm telling you, is going to be transformative for rural area or small municipalities in lowering the cost of these support systems, which actually appear big impediment today in delivering infrastructure in smaller towns or rural areas.
So, talking about AI helping in the private sector, how can AI tools reduce entry barriers for smaller or regional private players and make rural infrastructure projects commercially viable and operationally manageable?
Deepika ji, that's a very important question. Small and mid-size contractors or the concessionaires not only have problems in uh, identifying themselves as a worthwhile or credible project implementers to the public authorities, where AI can come in to their support with their previous data of whatever business they have been, can be put to good use to ascertain or to set up or to suggest that he or she is a credible entity which can be trusted for bidding for that particular infrastructure project. Then there is a requirement of bid documentation, because any private player, when they have to bid, they have to do the entire costing of the project themselves, and then plan how much profit they will take, or what all risks are there, and then they put in their bid, their pricing. For that, they have to do financial modeling, and they have to do the entire bankability assessment with the revenue projections and the other risk or the problems which they foresee. And then there is also a requirement of special equipment which a small player may not have. So all these things can be planned or and addressed for the help of private players, and youngsters can, those who do not know the contracting, right from their soft skills to their partnership skills to their risk taking profile, can be enhanced using the data or the support from the AI. Half of the time they do not know how to approach a issue, So they would be able to get help from AI to do the bidding. And you see, AI can auto generate templates of bid documents which they can fill in. They can simulate project cash flows, which they can fine tune to their requirement or to their risk appetite. And then AI can today predict based on the data sets or the project cash flow, which they decide what is the internal rate of return. And the sensitivity analysis can be done, which otherwise would have costed them quite a bit if they had hired a consultant for that. And the financing structure, how they would like to go, how much debt, equity, mezzanine equity, all that can be worked out. And then, more importantly, if they need specialized equipments, it will help them reach out to equipment banks to have tie-up with them so that they don't fall short when they have to submit their bid, that they whether own that equipment or have access to that equipment which is required for delivering that particular project. And then coming to the financing part of it, the country is now progressing towards surety bonds in place of bid bonds or the performance bank guarantees. So those AI can help in preparation of that paperwork as well. Then the compliance tracking, the project management as such, and equipment utilization optimization also can be helped by the AI. And you just imagine a rural contractor in Odisha accessing AI based advisory equal to any big four KPMG type advisory and at very less or no cost. It is just like a small entrepreneur having access to the best advisory and using his entrepreneurial skills. I'm sure they will deliver. And because AI is going to democratize the PPP, which is currently urban centric and in the hands of big consultants.
Very true, sir. We would like you to clearly explain us the financing and non-recourse structures. Non-recourse financing structures are often complex and risk intensive, especially in rural projects and uncertain revenue streams. Do you see AI enhancing risk modeling, credit assessment, and bankability analysis in a way that could unlock more sustainable infrastructure financing?
Absolutely. You see, the non recourse project finance depends on, firstly, let me clarify. The non recourse means in case of projects that there is no collateral and the financing is being sought or being provided against the project cash inflows, the future revenue uh, inflows which are being based on the traffic or the transactions which will happen due to that project. And so the predictability of the cash flows, whether it's a road, whether it's a water supply, whether it's a wastewater thing, or any other core infrastructure construction. So AI will be able to have better accuracy because in past, especially in the first decade of this century, PPP in India suffered and brought a not a good name in many projects where the traffic uh, calculations were totally out of the I mean correct prediction, and because of which many projects became non-performing assets. So the AI would help reduce such mistakes or major errors. And then risk mitigation. As I said, the AI will be able to study which all have been the problem areas or the dispute areas and the risk where have been more, and accordingly the risk metrics, mitigation metrics can be better prepared. And more so, AI would help the public authorities in enforcing the contract. Imagine a 500-page contract or 400-page contract. It is very difficult for the project implementing public authority to remember each and every clause. So if AI is at their disposal, they would be able to easily flag what is correctly being done, what is not being done, and it will all add to the quality of the performance of the private concessionaire. So AI can run scenario analysis. They can do the stress testing before even the project is constructed, and uh, based on other events which may or may not happen, the project revenue volatility can be discussed, can be assessed before even the project is constructed, and the political risk in a particular geographical area can also be assessed to some extent, and then there could be benchmarking for insurance premium, because a project which has got full life cycle insurance cover uh, invites better investors, because their risk in terms of project is minimized. And then institutions like, we must take help of like what is being done by Asian Development Bank, World Bank. They're already using such advanced analytics in risk monitoring and modeling. So if India builds a national AI enabled PPP digital platform, district level projects can become finance ready, bankable, and can be deployed at a great speed.
Very true, sir. One of the recurring challenges in PPP projects has been contract disputes and weak performance monitoring. Can AI driven system improve transparency, compliance tracking, and early warning mechanisms, thereby reducing litigation and project delays? Can you, sir, please explain?
Yes, Deepika ji, it can significantly address that. And as I just said, that the highways in India in first decade had aggressive bidding, traffic miscalculations, and then delayed clearances of various kind. So, to certain extent, our existing systems, which are also monitoring projects nicely, like Gati Shakti platform, have addressed many an issues. But AI certainly can predict and forewarn where the delays may happen, and rather than addressing the delays in a reactive mode, they could be arrested before they arrive. And the monitoring monitoring of projects at all levels uh, can be better. And as they say in project management, the work in progress, the granularity of the project management plan will become much finer. So you would be able to uh, deeply look into the project and see where the problems are and address them before they become uh, a problem. And you can also timely see whether we are meeting the milestones, whether there is a problem which is likely to be requiring additional effort or additional financing. So all that can happen in a proactive mode. So in a system which talks of critical chain based project planning, we are now going to compress the weak links to less and less. And those weak links also would be visible very clearly to many stakeholders, and they could be addressed better. And AI assisted contract analysis can certainly be much useful for contract or the project implementation. The ambiguities will get reduced, the vague statements will get identified, and we can fast track dispute resolutions, which are most of the time or many a times holding a lot of finances and cause project delays. One of them we are seeing in the Mumbai Delhi expressway, where just because of a small stretch, the entire expressway is not being put to good use. And so the AI integration can reduce almost all the problems of a project life cycle and can really help in a big way.
So, what should India do now? If you were advising the government of India at this critical juncture, what three immediate policy or institutional reforms would you prioritize to align PPP frameworks with AI driven governance for rural infrastructure?
You see, that is very thoughtful. That yes, if I have to identify, I would say that we should immediately work, or maybe we already be working on a national AI assisted PPP platform, and it can create a unified detailed project report generator, the risk analysis and risk mitigation matrix generator, the financial model engine, which can help all levels, at all level, the financial analysis or bankability analysis of a particular project, and certainly a model concession agreements library, which should be up to date and accessible to all public and private authorities at right up to district level. And when we talk of district level, we should have functional and well trained officials manning the district level PPP cells, who should be empowered and uh, with lot of energy and dynamism in them. Then PPP credit enhancement fund, or funding which requires to make a dead looking project a bankable project, what we call viability gap funding. So there should be financial institutions or support mechanisms created to support the not only the project to become bankable, but also to the concessionaires if they need uh, any other kind of financing support. They could also be allowed to submit surety bonds in case of bid bonds or the performance bank guarantees. And there could be a system of pooled guarantees or lower insurance premium for rural PPPs. And I'm sure all these policy framework modification will itself get a lot of help from the AI. And if that is put in place, that is going to align with vision of Viksit Bharat 2047.
So, if I may ask, while AI presents immense potential, it also raises concern around data governance, algorithm bias, and over automation. What safeguards should policymakers and project authorities adopt to ensure that AI remains an enabler rather than a source of systematic risk?
That is very important point which you have raised, Deepika ji. And yes, there could be problems. Though we have a very elaborate data protection act in place, but still, when we create AI based PPP support systems, we got to take care that there is no algorithm bias. There is that forensic checks or the safety walls we'll have to create. We'll have to ensure that there is total democracy at work when it comes to accessing a particular data set or a particular uh, support through AI for developing PPP projects or implementing PPP projects. The data quality, what is picked up, what is available, needs to be checked and to be ensured that the data which is being used or data which is based on which we are planning is credible data. Because ultimately, that youngster or that private small contractor who's going to take risk based on this data or this algorithm should not be cheated at the end of the day, or he should not be able to cheat the public authority by creating another non-performing asset. And then there is a question of cyber security. You see, as we have seen the growth of database systems, there are the cyber crime also has been growing with the same speed. So we'll have to not only uh, ensure that what we do is also being done in a very secure environment, but also it is isolated or safe from the access of hackers and all those wrongdoers who could disturb the system. Then we also need to see that we do automation only as much it is required, because over automation and if especially over automation when it is without field validation can be disastrous. So overall, the AI must assist and not replace the human judgment. That has been the philosophy of this country, and I think that's going to be right for the PPP projects also. So the policy oversight and ethical AI framework are going to be essential, and public authorities should take maximum interest and maximum decisions to ensure that we don't compromise on policy oversight and ethical AI frameworks.
So, coming on to our closing vision, do you believe the convergence of PPP frameworks and artificial intelligence can genuinely transform rural India and accelerate the journey towards the Viksit Bharat 2047?
Yes, Deepika ji, you said it. Yes, it can be done if done rightly. India's demographic scale and digital backbone, which we have today, along with financial depth, which is now appearing and becoming visible, can create a unique opportunity for our nation. And PPP could be a game changer. It can unleash the development of infrastructure at the country scale, and it can bring in efficiency, innovation, and risk sharing, provided, as I mentioned, those policy framework and support mechanisms are addressed by the public authorities. So, while AI will provide speed, intelligence, and standalone standardization, it can really uh, kickstart the development of infrastructure at tier 2, tier 3, or the small municipality or rural areas. You see, there are system of aspirational districts and gram panchayats. We need to enable them. We need to provide them the material. There are people who are capable enough of addressing and building their capacity in real time. AI is also going to be helpful in reducing corruption at all levels, which is which is already creating compromise in quality and various other things. So not only it will help speed up the development, it will also speed up the development with quality and with ethical and the right systems. You see, you will remember during the recently held AI summit, I think 19th or 20th February, sitting with Nandan Nilekani, this CEO of Anthropic, his name is, I think, Dario. He mentioned that India could grow at 25% GDP growth. I think he is not wrong. Let's not laugh at him. It's possible when we enable our rural areas or small municipalities to develop this infrastructure, which requires trillions of rupees, and those finances are likely to be available. So it's going to have a domino effect, and with that effect, it is going to uh, help the economy grow at much faster pace. So enabling AI based PPP format to be deployed for development of small town infrastructure or the village infrastructure is not only uh, a necessity. I think it is the most important. So please understand, this is not just economics. It's a important requirement today if we have to move towards Viksit Bharat, that our economy has to grow, and this is one option, one road which can make that growth possible if we deploy PPP with AI for development of rural and small town infrastructure. And of course, it will be leading to fulfillment of a completion of UN Sustainable Development Goals. I think it is very important for that we look at it in right earnest and take it forward. Thank you.
Dr. Bana, thank you for such a deeply insightful and thought provoking conversation. Today's discussion makes one thing abundantly clear, that future of rural infrastructure in India does not lie in policy alone, nor in capital alone. It lies at the powerful intersection of intelligence governance, structured PPP frameworks, and strategic use of artificial intelligence. To our listeners, this conversation is not merely about technology or finance, it is about reimagining how India builds, manages, and sustains infrastructure for every citizen. Thank you for tuning in this special episode. We look forward to continuing this critical conversation in our upcoming editions. Until next time, Namaskar.
Namaste.